This is the I Read Comic Books podcast. I am your host, Mike Rappin, and with me this week, two fantastic human beings, Nick White.
Hey.
And Kate Scotchless.
Hello.
We are back, folks. I know we've been off and around, and we've been doing some weird episodes and doing things that maybe you didn't expect, but you know what? 2020 is a year of change and insanity, and so you know what? We're sticking to it. But we are going to continue on a regular episode this week, and I'm going to ask the question that I ask every single week. How have you been, and how have comic books been? Let's start with you, Nick.
Well, as you said, 2020, knew someone else, because I'm not changing. That said, Michigan Weather Watch, it's honestly the nicest weather it's been in a long time. The sun is out. It's shining. It's beautiful. I'm not participating in it as mandated by my government. So sure. I'm just looking at it, which honestly for me is my preferred interaction with the weather, as just something I observe, whether on my phone or whether through a window. I mean, what is a window if not a slightly older version of your phone? So think about that. There's some food for thought. Think about it. Who's been inside a long time? Me. So in terms of what I've read, I did read Dick Tracy Forever. This is by Michael Avon Oeming, who wrote it and did the art. Taki Soma did the colors. Sean Lee did the letters. For those unaware of Michael Avon Oeming, he's done a lot of independent projects. He's perhaps best known for doing Powers with Brian Michael Bendis, amongst other things. Look, I don't have a lot of knowledge of Dick Tracy. I haven't seen the movie. I haven't read more than a few of the comic strips. Most of my exposure came via Dick Tracy Dead or Alive, courtesy of Lee, Michael, and Laura Allred. It was truly a family affair, with Rich Tommaso on art duties. Most of my knowledge came from that book, which is absolutely bonkers. It's a wild ride. But most of what I know of Dick Tracy comes from that, and then the fact that I had these walkie-talkies modeled after Tracy's wrist radios from the 1990 film. My mom got them at Toys R Used, and they weighed a pound, which probably explains why I have these bony-ass weak wrists now. Thanks a ton. And
wait, did you say you went to Toys R Used?
Toys R Used. It's a it was. I was gonna say it was, but it still exists. It's a local used toy store.
Okay, I thought that you just didn't know that it was Toys R Us, and you thought it was Toys R Use, as in like multiple letter U's. Okay, I just wanted to clarify. I mean, I think I get the idea of what it is.
I mean, I think what my mom said is like, why go to Toys R Us? Like Toys R Used has like 2 extra letters in the name. It's got to be so much better. This is where we're shopping. Pick something out, and we'll take it back, and that'll be yours. So yeah, my mom got me those, and they weighed a lot, and I'm pretty sure, I think at one point, like, my grandpa modified the signal to, like, send out for more than, like, 10 feet, which, like, the FCC probably wouldn't want to hear that, but my grandpa's deceased, so good luck going after him, FCC. Like,
try me, FCC!
Yeah, come on. You got bigger fish to fry right now anyway. Probably. I don't know. But I think kind of like the appeal of Dick Tracy when I was thinking about this, and kind of my main reason for reading this book is that I think a lot like the James Bond franchise or the Aliens franchise, like the character of Dick Tracy doesn't have like a massively well-known lore or character history, and before all of the Dick Tracy fanatics, I don't know if they have a name, I'm sure they'll let me know, roll in and be like, oh, Dick Tracy has a storied past, and he has like 2 different marriages and 3 kids, and everyone knows this. Look, the public at large does not know or care about a lot of this stuff.
How does that voice go again, Nick?
Yeah. Could you give me some more lines that you would expect from these people?
Look, there was a movie with Al Pacino, and yes, there was a movie with Al Pacino. And Warren Beatty, I think that's who played Dick Tracy, managed to do something that only Warren and Adam Sandler would do later with Dick and Jane, which is that both of them managed to make Al Pacino look really, really stupid. So I guess that's an accomplishment. Now we're going after Al Pacino. Just you notice the targets just keep getting bigger and bigger. Nick, who are we going to go after this week? The FCC and Al Pacino. Okay, good. Who's had coffee today? I did.
Good.
We knew.
So with Tracy, like you have these iconic symbols, right? You've got the fedora, you've got the big yellow jacket, you've got the wrist radio, and so much like those other franchises, there's just a few powerful signifiers to work with, and then you just build whatever story you want around that, which allows for a lot of freedom, I think. And Oeming basically tells this story that weaves three interconnected plots between I think it's 1931, the present, and then 2031. And so you kind of, much like the title Dick Tracy Forever sounds like, you're getting this semi-generational story between all these different eras, and it's pretty enjoyable. Oeming's art, I realize, isn't for everyone. He has this sort of strange, hard geometry to his characters' faces, especially the eyes, which can be off-putting for some people. It almost looks kind of Picasso-ish to me. Don't ask me to elaborate on that. I've only been to about 4 museums. I can't tell you much on that.
As the resident art expert,
yeah, I was going to say,
I have seen a Picasso before. I've seen an exhibit of Picasso's. I agree.
And you've seen Michael Avon Oeming's art before, so you...
Yes. I definitely read and dropped one of his books in the past, so definitely.
Perfect. Anyway, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think I would definitely recommend this book to people who maybe don't feel like they know a lot about Dick Tracy, because, as I just said, really, there's just a couple, like, signifiers people attach to, and that's really it. He's got a really goofy-ass rogues gallery, and I think that would probably be one of the main reasons I would say go read this book. One of the guys he deals with is like a smuggler at the docks who literally, his head... it's not literally, I think it looks like it's a giant head of broccoli. That's like what his head looks like, and he's green.
Great.
So, yeah. And then there's like Prune Face, which, again... The name says it all. His face looks like a giant prune.
Okay.
I think that's who Al Pacino played, actually. Maybe.
I don't recall. I know that Al Pacino had a lot of face makeup on in the movie, though. You sold me on the other Dick Tracy book. I don't know if you sold me on this one, but I'm maybe willing to try it if it keeps the kind of goofy antics that I liked from the movie. I don't know. Yeah,
I mean, to be in total transparency, yes, I think the All Red book is a better book.
Okay.
I think this is an interesting follow-up. I would say this is like a hyper niche scenario, but I guess if you looked at the All Red book and you went, oh geez, I kind of actually wish the art was more like All Red, I think this is closer to that. Whereas I'm sure some people looked at the cover of the All Red book and said, wow, this looks really cool. And then they saw Rich Tomaso's art on the inside and said, I don't think so. Which to that person I say, your loss, but I get it. I get it. There is a gulf of aesthetic differences between Michael Allred and Rich Tomaso. So
yeah. Well, Kate, what about you? What have you been reading recently?
I have been reading more Strangers in Paradise, which I remember talking about last time I was on here. And some of you were thinking, well, weren't you last on a regular episode like months ago? So you must be several volumes deep now.
Yeah, definitely, Kate, right?
Yeah, 100% is absolutely not true. I am on volume 2 and last spoke about volume 1. The thing is I have a lot of homework and work that does not stay within the workday window, sadly.
Right.
I don't get that much reading time, but these were lent to me by a colleague and highly recommended, with the caveat that they didn't really get into it until volume 2. So I was interested to see what the difference is, because volume 1, I was like, okay, this is pretty kind of wackadoodle slice of life, right? It's about 3 friends, Francine, Kachu, and David, and them being in relationships and not being in relationships and screwing people over and being screwed over and just the regular, like, people being people but kind of ramped up kind of slice of life comic. It's black and white,
Gotcha.
all written and drawn by Terry Moore. And so then you get to volume 2, and somehow this slice of life comic morphs into like a crime drama, and it gets way more interesting. And I'm like, yeah, because why wouldn't you just totally shift the genre of your book? So it's definitely a lot better so far. I am not finished. It is 9 issues, and I'm like, I think 5 through, so maybe halfway. It is available, and it looks like a lot of other volumes of this are available on Comixology Unlimited. So if you, like me, are shut in and still want access to comics, I think that's a really good deal right now. The series won the best ongoing series Eisner at one point and was like highly acclaimed and all that. So I think from what I've read and what I've been told by the person who lent it to me, because they lent me the trade paperbacks, that it just keeps getting better. So I am definitely going to continue with the series and am enjoying it so far. I think the best thing about it to me right now is the way that the faces are drawn is probably the most expressive I've seen in comics, in a way that isn't super cartoonish. You know how cartoons can be really exaggerated emotions, but like this is realistic enough that you can get really subtle facial expressions of how someone is receiving the other person's words, and like the way that is really important in interpersonal dynamics and stuff when you're navigating relationships between these 3 people. And it's just so good. And it's also black and white and sketchy enough that I'm like, I could start drawing. That's a thing I could do in my apartment, right? And then I pick up a pen and do a little. I'm like, oh, I have the skills of a 4th grader. Never mind. This is just frustrating. How about you, Mike?
Oh, I've been all right. I will say one last thing about Strangers in Paradise is when it comes to slice of life, I mean, anything can happen in life, right?
That's
so like,
completely
why
true.
not?
Yeah.
What is that? I don't like. That sounds ominous. I don't.
Yeah, I mean, suddenly your life becomes a crime drama. Who knows? Maybe the next it's going to become a fantasy because you drank a weird potion that someone on a corner gave you. I don't know. Slice of life comics can do whatever they want.
It's true.
Well, for me this week, I've been reading, I should say not just this past week, but the last couple weeks, I've been reading kind of not a lot. I don't know. For some reason, when I'm stuck inside, all I want to do is watch TV because it's so much easier to just like plop down in front of a TV. Kate, I know you and I were talking about that before the show started. I totally relate to that. But I did read a few things. I sat down and read Bang number 2. Much to Kate's chagrin, this is not about the energy drink. It's actually about
complete
action.
False advertising.
Yeah, it's a comic that's not about energy drinks, but it's about action characters like a James Bond character or a John McClane type character. And so, like, after number 1, I was certain that this book was going to be very good, if only because I think I really like how Matt Kindt takes on genres in some ways. I think he has a very good understanding of the spy genre, and so I thought, oh, okay, this is going to be more spy shit. I'm on board for that. But number 2 decides to kick you in the face with a different right turn, and instead says, you know what? We're actually going to talk about action heroes. We're going to talk about a Die Hard / John McClane type character. And I really dig how Matt Kindt is building his story by providing these little backstories for each of the characters. So far, we've got 2. I'm guessing that number 3 is going to have something different. But you get these backstories about these characters, who they were, why you would dig them as like a literary character, because they're all supposed to be literary characters, even though this was clearly like a John McClane character in number 2. And he's slowly building this lore in the story, finding similar elements to connect between these different action heroes. And I like how plain it is. I like that you could probably pick up number 2 without having read number 1 and been fine for the story, which I think is really, really smart. But if you've read number 1, you would actually dig number 2 even more. So I'm curious to see how the rest of this series goes. If I'm not mistaken, this is going to be a mini series, so I'm very excited to see where the end is. But man, it's got a really fun twist in it that I really, really enjoyed by the end of number 2. So if you haven't picked this up, I think Matt Kindt, Wilfredo Torres with letters by Nate Picos, colors by Nayoung Kim. This book is killer. Either grab it in singles or wait for that trade. It's going to be a book you don't want to miss for sure. Otherwise, I did read Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Volume 1. This is the Boom series that basically relaunched all the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers stories. I know for a long time Mighty Morphin Power Rangers was being published by Clips with a Z or something like that. And I think they were, or Paper Clips, I think is what they were called. And they were like this really small publisher. And they had this massive license that they were okay with Bandai or Saban or whoever makes it. And I think they lost the license for some reason. Maybe the company went under. I'm not really sure. But now Boom has the license for this. And so I read the Volume 1 reboot, I guess. This is by Kyle Higgins, Steve Orlando, and Margaret Scott with art by Hendry Presetia, Corin Howell, and Daniel Bayliss. I couldn't find any specific credits for some reason, but those are the names that were on it. I will say that nostalgia mostly got me for this book, but let me give you guys a brief overview in case you know nothing about Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. There's 5 teenagers. They gain these powers via power coins from an old godlike character named Zordon, who's been in constant battle with an evil witch who lives on the moon. Her name is Rita Repulsa. Rita, hell-bent on conquering Earth, sends monsters down to destroy everything she can take over. Well, specifically, I guess, Angel Grove, California for some reason. And Zordon sends the Rangers off to stop Rita from destroying the world. These teens, they also get access to these massive dinosaur-ish themed mechs called Zords, because Zordon is a little bit full of himself. And they are themed to match the characters or the powers or the color of the power coin. I don't know. The only reason I knew this was because I knew the intro of the show or whatever, but it's Mastodon, Pterodactyl, Triceratops, Saber-toothed Tiger, Tyrannosaurus Rex. I mean, if you've seen the show, you're saying it in your head right now. Yeah. But then there's Tommy, and he's the new kid in school, and Rita brainwashes him, giving him some Ranger-like powers, but in the end, the Rangers broke the brainwashing with friendship. I don't really remember, and the volume isn't really clear as to how Rita lost control of Tommy, but all we know is that Tommy is now on the Rangers' side, and the problem is that the Rangers don't trust him. They don't trust Tommy at all because he's kind of encroaching on Jason's turf. Jason teaches all these little kids. He teaches them like Taekwondo, and Tommy knows some other sort of fighting. My guess is it's capoeira because it would just be perfect if that's what he knew.
Crane kick.
Something. And so, Jason Sensei asks if Tommy can come in and also teach these kids some sort of kung fu, and Jason has this thing for Kimberly, but she seems to be into Tommy. So there's all this drama, and this is basically where Volume 1 starts, with like this preconceived idea that all of this stuff. So we've got the characters not trusting Tommy. You got the characters they all work together as a team, but when Tommy shows up, things always fall apart because Tommy's being haunted by these memories of Rita and when he was a bad guy and when he fought against the Rangers, and for some reason his Zord isn't like responding to his controls. Like there's all this really interesting tweaks on the original TV show that I really, really liked. I like that they weren't trying to stick to the actual storylines, like similar villains, Goldar is still a thing, and Bulk and Skull are still a thing, and everyone's got the same names, but they weren't trying to stick to the, little closed off serialized TV show that was coming off. Instead, you've got just this one big story arc about like Tommy's kind of redemption and fighting off these haunted feelings that he has still from Rita. They introduce a new villain. I think on the whole this is really good because I'm a fucking sucker, and like I said, nostalgia hit me really hard. Bulk and Skull are incredible in this. They're stupid but definitely needed, and if you don't know who they are, they're these two guys that go to school with the Rangers who are these teenagers in high school. They do not like the kids that are the Rangers, but they love the Power Rangers. So they are obsessed with the Power Rangers. Instead of a cable access show that they used to have on the old TV show, now they have a YouTube channel, which totally works for the story, makes it feel really modern. And yeah, I don't know, this whole book was great. Since I read this for a book club, someone asked me a really interesting question, like, how did you feel about the Rangers having cell phones? And I was like, it kind of defeats the whole point of them being super cool with these instant communicators that they had. Yeah. So like, if they have cell phones, they don't need the communicators anymore, but the communicators also double as like teleportation devices or something. I don't know. It's a whole thing. I really dug it. There was a handful of kind of cringy panels where you could tell that they clearly needed to have the whole team standing in a panel saying "Go Power Rangers," and they did the transformations and stuff like that, which were kind of like they were a good throwback, but it also felt like unnecessary page use. So, but yeah, I don't know. I'm going to keep reading this because like the first 4 issues of this series was awesome. And there's 10 volumes out and I am on board to continue reading Power Rangers for some reason, at least whatever's in Comixology Unlimited. So yeah, I dug it. And I think if you liked Power Rangers, I think you would really, really like this. Like the original Power Rangers TV show, I think you'd really dig it. I don't know if you guys watched that at all when you were younger, but it feels the exact same.
Can I say I just hate that all of what you just said made sense to me. Like
no, Nick, you know what? It's okay. It's okay. I mean, it's something we grew up on, right?
It was like you just spoke to like 4 years of my life in 5 minutes. So
yeah.
The thing that's important to remember that I remember about Power Rangers as a child is that Power Rangers is for babies, little babies. And it was my little sister's favorite show. And I was way, way too mature for such nonsense.
How many years older than your sister are you, Kate?
2.5. Thank you very much.
Oh, okay.
She was
I get it.
a little baby.
Kate
and
was
I
mature
was
at
a
the
very
time.
big kid.
Yeah.
Way too cool. Way too cool.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I really enjoyed it. Like, it was a nice, I guess, like, trip down memory lane in a weird way. One other thing I do want to mention is the art was actually, I mean, the art was really good on the whole. It felt like a generic Capes book. The one thing I'm glad that they didn't do is try to, like, match the likeness to the original cast, because I think that would have been super weird.
Yeah.
But they do have the same aesthetic, right? Like in the TV show, all the characters do wear their primary color when they're in like plain clothes, which I always found to be really funny. But yeah, they didn't try to match anyone's likeness, which was good, and it feels like it feels like it's owning its own style and look without having to like pay too much homage to the original series. And again, one caveat here, I will say, yes, I know Power Rangers is based on a Japanese TV series called Super Sentai, and I realize that it's a completely different thing. I don't want to dive down that rabbit hole because I did during my book club, and you guys have no idea how many types of Super Sentai / Mighty Morphin Power Rangers series there are. I want you both to give me a number, and I'm going to tell you that it's too low. Give me a realistic number, and I'm going to tell you that it's too low.
Well, I mean, let's see. You got Power Rangers. And you
just
got, like,
no thinking.
Zeo,
just give me a number. Just
Ninja
give me a number.
Force. 10. So it's gonna be more than that. So like 15.
Nick. Okay, Nick, you're done. 15's your number. We're cutting you off. Kate, what's your number?
20.
20. Okay. Well, I want you both to know that you're wrong. And I'm sorry for being rude about it, but I was shocked by the number of actual series that exists out there. Because Super Sentai, on its own, as a Japanese series, had like 40 plus different different series. Now, I'm actually gonna pull up the Wikipedia right now, even though this is not something that we normally do on the show. But like I said, we're trying new things. So, Super Sentai series.
The new podcast is just reading Wikipedia pages.
Please.
Well, I think about 40. There's 40 Japanese series, right? And as far as the American series are concerned, 24, 26 if we count the super versions of some of the regular ones. So, yeah, it's insane.
What?
It's insane. Anyways, that's all I wanted to do. Sorry to waste everyone's time. Let's talk about comic books that are coming out this upcoming week. Comics are dropping on March 25th, 2020. What are you both excited for this week? Let's start with you, Kate.
I am excited for The New Mutants by Jonathan Hickman, Volume 1. I have not had a chance to read this as it's been coming out.
Okay.
Because time and money. Since moving, I have not been getting floppies at all. There is a shop here that I know of and keep meaning to go to, but it's like not in a part of town I enjoy driving to because it's very busy traffic. Anyway, the point is, haven't been there, and so now I'm very reliant on trades. And I think this one will be a good one to purchase on the internet and have sent to me, to my home.
I think you're going to be very pleased with it. I'll say that.
I'm excited. So why am I excited for this? First of all, the cover on Previews World looks awesome. Second of all, New Mutants. third. There is no third. See 1 and 2. Like,
A very carefully structured argument.
Yeah, 100%.
Ivan Reis, man. Ivan Reis, it's incredible art. And I mean, if you notice, the collection is like numbers 1, 2, 5, and 7. And that's like because you're just getting the Jonathan Hickman story about the mutants on the cover, which I appreciate that they're separating them out. Yeah, Kay, I think you're really going to dig it. It is a really, really fun story.
Just to correct you, Mike, it's Rod Reis, not Ivan.
Oh, I'm sorry, Rod Reis. Thank you.
No worries.
But Ed, since you're all about interrupting, Nick, what's up with you? What are you excited for this week?
Since I made a valued contribution to the show.
Yeah, how dare you?
For me, it's definitely going to have to be The Transformers versus The Terminator #1. This is from IDW in collaboration with Dark Horse, and it's a 4-issue miniseries. It's written by David Marriott and John Barber and Tom Waltz, so that's kind of weird. Like, once you hit 3 writers on a book, I get nervous and ask what's going on, but
it's not usually a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make me as nervous as 3 artists, but still.
There is still one kitchen and many, many cooks.
Yeah.
Sure.
So Marriott's been an IDW editor for quite a long time. Barber's IDW's editor-in-chief. He's written a ton of books. Most importantly, he did co-write Transformers vs. G.I. Joe, so that's a big deal. And Tom Waltz is perhaps best known for scripting the 2012 IDW reboot of TMNT. So it's all kind of like very much super in-house IDW staff. Milne, the artist, Alex Milne is the artist, and David Garcia Cruz is the colorist. Milne is, unsurprisingly, also spent a lot of time at IDW, drawing Transformers books such as Lost Light and More Than Meets the Eye.
Yes, that's fucking awesome. Then you're in good hands.
Yeah, it's like a very, very IDW in-house sort of operation. It doesn't seem like they brought in anybody from the outside to do this. The preview's description is, quote, it's Skynet versus Cybertron in a crossover for the ages. All right, calm down, guys. 1984, when a deadly race of machines emerge from another time, will a robotic guardian be able to protect the Earth from a dire future? Which I love, because during that sentence you can actually figure out who are the Transformers and who's the Terminator. Maybe they planned it that way. It's genius. If not, it's poorly done. Or will the T-800 fail in his mission to prevent the world from becoming a plaything for the Decepticons? So when I heard the title, I just assumed it was about an evil T-800 and some good Autobots, and that's what happens when you assume, right? You make an ass out of Nick White, usually. Just me. Just Nick. So when I heard that these were flipped, I was like, okay, you've got me interested now. That sounds kind of like something I'd be into. And I'm sure some people are like, oh, but Nick, the Terminator was good, and what's arguably the most famous and best Terminator movie? Terminator's been good before. Most people think the Terminator's good. All right, look. All right, I get it. It's fine. That's fine. I get that. All I'm saying is it's surprising to me that they're doing this again. I'm really interested to see whether or not they're actually trying to integrate this into the Terminator films, and whether or not they're doing like an Arnold likeness or something like that. I've seen the cover art by Milne. It kind of vaguely looks a little like Arnold, but I'm not totally certain. Who knows? They might not even have likeness rights anyway, right? So
right. It's good to know that Dick Tracy fans are also big fans of Terminator.
They probably they would be. Like, they're both very like niche kind of opinionated crowds, and it's they hang out together.
Especially folks that are big on the lore of Terminator, or what remains of the lore.
Yeah. Oh, that's a Terminator T-800 Mark IV. Everyone knows that. Yeah.
Duh. So for me, I'm excited for X-Men #9 this week. This is Jonathan Hickman, Leno Francis Yu. I mean, what else can I say? You know what? I will say something. We got Brood. We got New Mutants back in town. We got the Shi'ar. We got X-Men, folks. It's a nonstop party in this goddamn utopia. I can't think of a X-book right now that takes place on Krakoa that doesn't feature at least 1 or 2 pages of people just partying their goddamn asses off. So, like, I don't understand what's going on in Krakoa, but can I be there? Like, can I go to there? All I want to say is, though, really, I'm excited for this book. X-Men has been consistently good for me. I've been digging it quite a bit, and I want to say I really, really love the way that Hugh draws Goliath, one of the Shi'ar Guardians / head of the Shi'ar Guardians. I think he's drawn in such a stupendous way. Like, Hugh draws very beefy, like muscly folks in general, but I specifically love the way that he's drawn Goliath in the past, and if I'm not mistaken, in this book. So definitely pumped for this. And I just want to make a small shout out to Pretty Deadly Volume 3, which comes out this week as well. I'm probably going to pick that up as, on top of this.
Yo, I want to get that too.
Yeah, dude, it's gonna be super great. But yeah, let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we're gonna talk about comics that took us forever to get to and why. So we'll be back in just a second. For our show this week, we are talking about comic books that took us a long time to get to, and really asking the question, what took us so long to get to those comics? If they came highly recommended, or if they were something that we thought were right up our alley, but we just never actually sat down to read them, what's the deal with that? What's up with not reading comics right away? So I guess, Nick, Kate, I gotta ask, like, what are some of those things that were on your list? I know I have a bunch. Maybe I'll just throw to you, Kate. What was something on your list that you were like, I can't believe I didn't get to this until recently, or something?
Yeah, so there's a lot on my list like that, because I am perpetually behind in what I want to be reading, and they fall into a few categories of, like, just the time and money aspects of comics. So, like, not having time to read. Money, if I library weight a fair number of books because I don't have a lot of spare cash for comics. The things that, like, in terms of web comics in particular, I did not, so many people recommended different web comics to me, but the whole idea of, like, going to all these different websites to read them, like, each day or whatever, was, like, someone explained their system to me at one point in the, like, 2013 or something like that, and I was just like, nope, that's too much work. And so when the Line Webtoon app came out, making it super easy, it just aggregates all of these things, that, like, reduced the friction of reading them. So that was another one. And then there's series that so there's, like, you know how some books read better in trade because they're not contained well enough to,
I've read East of West. I get you.
Yeah. And then some books not only read better in trade, but each time a new trade that comes out, you basically have to reread all the other trades that came before it to even know what's going on.
Right.
So for books like that, I have sat on them basically until a series is done, if I know it's ending in the near future, to then just read everything at once. So I guess one like that for me right now that's sitting waiting for me is Wictive. I already have read volumes 1 through 6, but I was holding off on 7 through 9 until it wrapped up. And now it wrapped up, and I just have to find the time to, I'm going to reread all of them and then read the new ones. So...
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, Wictive, I can totally understand with. I read that, like, month to month, and even then I feel like I need to go back and actually reread it.
I tried, so I actually tried picking up 7. I own 7 and 8. And 7 I picked up, and I, like, had re-skimmed number 6. So I was just like, I don't remember who any of these people are. I need to go back and read, like, what all's going on to really get something out of the story.
Yeah, it's a big story.
I guess the final thing is, like, sometimes I've had books that I didn't read for a long time because so many people were telling me they didn't like it, which is kind of the opposite of, like, it was recommended by some people, but then others really were vocal about not liking it. And so I held off, and then was surprised to find out when I did try it that I fell into the camp of people who were recommending it. So Lumberjanes was like that for me, which is on Hoopla right now. If you need a good, cheerful, girls being awesome kind of book to read by yourself or read with your kids who are also cooped up with you. But so many people when that was first coming out were so vocal, at least in my comic book club in undergrad, about how stupid it was, how much they didn't like it. And when I finally got to it, I was like, what are you talking about? This is delightful. So that's another category, I suppose.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think I definitely, like I said, I understand the Wick Div thing. Like I did that with Chew.
Yeah, that's
I had been
another
reading
one like
Chew for a
that.
really long time. And so when Volume 12 came out, I told myself I couldn't read it until I reread the whole series. And then I did, and it was super worth it. It was so super worth the payoff.
The thing that
but
keeps
yeah.
me from reading more of Chew is that it's so disgusting. Just like so nasty.
Yeah, I mean, if you don't gel with Rob Gilroy's art, I totally get it. Because like the way he draws some things, it is just gross.
Yeah, I read it the first volume when I was like after my ankle surgery, and so I was like nauseous from painkillers already, and then reading it and I was just like, I'm not having a good time.
Yeah, I gotcha. What about you, Nick? Are there any books that you put off for any particular reason?
Sure, it's a great question. I think first and foremost, for me, it's less about putting off books because I've heard negative things or somewhat negative things. And in a lot of ways, it's more about putting books off because just at the outset, like people have recommended them to me, which I think just turns into like an authority issue where people are like, you should read this, you need to read this. And then like if you can get like a cutout visualization of my brain, like it's like my brain escorting the book to like brain jail and being like, stay here in the deepest recesses and you're not going anywhere. And then if someone's like, hey, you really should read this book, I'm like, all right, maximum security prison for you, you're never gonna read this book. So like a lot of books that Mike's recommended are sort of like in my mind's equivalent of like Riker's Island, basically. Like that's where they've been trapped. And they're, oh God, ooh, that's a deep cut. Superjail, I like it.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it for me. Like another one for me is like books that have just been amassing all sorts of like trophies and awards and praise and medals and the half of the pull quotes on the back of the book are from Barack Obama. And it's like, this is the best book ever.
Sure.
I'm not going to try to do a Barack Obama impersonation. It won't be good. And then I get scared to read the book because, like, I know the moment I read the book, people are going to be like, what do you think? And like, a perfect example for me would be, like, March, right? The March trilogy by Congressman John Lewis and Nate Powell. And Lewis's assistant, I think his name's Andrew Aiden. And, like, I enjoyed the books. I thoroughly enjoyed the books. They were great. The art was amazing. It was a wonderful story. But I was worried that, like, when I finished that, people were like, what did you think? And I went, oh, they were really good. People would be like, that's what you took away from it? Like, don't you have, like, 5 paragraphs of how, like, life-changing it was? And it's like...
Where's your 5,000-word think piece on this?
Exactly. And that's why I get scared about touching, like, all of these, like, super praised books. And it's not that they aren't worthy of praise. It's that I'm worried that when I'm done with it, people are going to want, like, my own special think piece that isn't, like, rehashing everything that everyone else has already said, even though those are the exact same things I'm probably going to say myself.
Right. So have you read any of these books? Like, we haven't gotten to the I've read these books now.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm concerned.
So March is a great example of that, and I have read March, and to be honest, I have another one just like March in terms of like all of the praise and all of the awards and a really serious moment in American history, and that's they called us enemy. Mm-hmm. I've got that sitting on my shelf from the library right now, and exact same thing. Like, I'm really daunted to pick that up because I know I'm gonna have to say, like, you know, I have no doubt that I will find it impactful and powerful and just as moving as everyone else. I'm worried that I'm gonna have to have some really momentous think piece afterwards, you know, for people to.
This is why you just read these books and you just don't tell anybody until years later. Yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah. Right, because like, I think after as time passes, there's less of an expectation. Like, if like a couple years after Watchmen came out and you were like, it was fine, right? People would be like, what do you mean it was just fine? Like, surely it resonated with you on some like body, mind, spiritual, emotional level, right? But like now you can just say it's fine and no one gets mad, right?
Right. Anyways, so you've read March, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, I've read March.
Okay.
Another good example for me would be like Lone Wolf and Cub. I just read volumes 1 and 2. I read volume 2 last night as the Hoopla app warned me that I had 1 hour and 12 minutes to read 200 pages.
Oh, okay.
It was
Good.
like, get on it. I did it, by the way. And that's by Kazuo Koike wrote it, and Goseki Kojima drew it. It originally ran from 1970 to 1976. This manga was adapted into 6 films, 4 plays, a television series. I think it also had a video game. It's 28 volumes, each over 300 pages. So, it's kind of small. It cult audience, clearly.
I mean, it is
never
small
really
in
took
manga
off.
terms.
That's true.
Yeah, only 28 volumes of 300 pages. What a failure.
Yeah. No, I don't say like it's a failure, but I would say that it's, as far as like a successful manga is considered, I would say that that's actually kind of small, right?
I think One Piece has ruined you, Mike. Like, I think the fact that this isn't a book that like families haven't had 3 to 4 generations born and exist during the course of it, like it's a fail. Everything's a failure now.
No,
like,
I'm not calling it a failure at all. I am just saying, for a massively successful series, like, this is a medium length series, right? Because massively successful usually runs, and I'm not joking, like 40 to 50
that's
volumes.
Why it's funny.
Listen, get off of my shit, Nick. Anyways, you've read this book. You've been sending me screenshots of it. It looks beautiful.
Yeah, and I put this off, I think, really for a couple of reasons. One was just I wasn't really familiar with or interested in manga. I'm still not that familiar with manga, obviously. For those who've listened to the show, I've obviously kind of been slowly inching the door open a little bit more and a little bit more until you see me Naruto running down the street.
I just
maintaining a
imagine
6
Renee
feet
and
distance.
Mike with the axes from The Shining, just
Yeah.
just chiseling away at that door.
Yeah.
The problem is that, to keep with Nick's metaphor, if he's inching the door open, but that's like just cracking the dam on the manga, and you're in the middle of the Hoover Dam, and it doesn't work like that, Nick. You're going to be overrun.
Yeah, I see what you're getting at there, but again, much like March, and they call this enemy. You've got this book again that has monumental praise. All sorts of people from all different media outlets are saying it's a big deal. It's a game changer. It's got awards. It's got a trophy case full of all sorts of I guess trophies, right? That would make sense. And so I just get daunted with that sort of stuff, right? Because I know that either I'm supposed to have the same sort of experience, or I'm going to just have to keep it to myself, right? That I thought it was okay.
Yeah.
And in terms of this book, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. You follow this guy named, oh boy, here goes some name butchering, Ogami Ito, and his young son Daigoro Ito, as they seek revenge on the Yagyu clan for the murder of Ogami's wife / Daigoro's mom. And this clan tries to get him to commit ritual suicide after his name is dishonored, but he abandons the path of the samurai to become an assassin. He was the shogun's executioner. This takes place during the Tokugawa shogunate era. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. I know this book has gotten a lot of praise for being a fairly accurate historical depiction of things going on at the time. Thankfully, there is a glossary in the back, which makes it easy, even though we talked about with our meetup yesterday some solutions for me being able, with like a PDF, to like jump back and forth between the glossary and my current page just to make things easier, because that was getting kind of hard, because it starts to turn into like almost like a school assignment where they're bolding all of the big keywords and you're just like, oh fuck it, what does that mean? Shogunate, god damn it.
Right.
Look it up, right? And at a certain point I'm not sure if this will be true for other people, I was like, you know what, I'm a human. I've had some slight to moderate schooling. I have a core understanding of context clues. I'll figure it out. I'll figure it out. Some of that confidence was misplaced. So for those people thinking like, I believe in myself, like, whoa, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Like, think about it.
Yeah. For all you non-humans out there, we're sorry that Nick insulted you.
It was a low blow.
Yeah.
But like, honestly, just if you're thinking like, I believe in me, like, do some self-exploration, and
Jeez,
I don't know. Anyway, I'm joking, everyone. Self-empowerment's important. I've thoroughly enjoyed this book. It's pretty violent. It's pretty brutal. It doesn't hold back, but it's gorgeous. It's unbelievable. The artwork. This is one of those books, and I think we've all encountered those where you almost want to say, don't ever let this book get colored. Like, please don't do it.
I mean, it's a manga. I mean, they don't traditionally recolor manga unless there's like a huge push for it by the fans, right? And
doesn't that sometimes
like
happen when this stuff comes to America? Like, America basically makes the push for, you got to put this in color.
I think the only exception of that would be, there's two that I can think of. One is Akira, and the other is Dragon Ball Z.
I was going to say Dragon Ball, yeah.
And the reason for that is Dragon Ball Z has such a strong following in the anime that it's like, we just wanted to match this with the anime, right? And Akira, the same thing. The movie was so well regarded that they wanted to match it to the movie. But yeah, I wouldn't say that that's a common occurrence. I mean, manga fans out there, get at me, but I think
Didn't
that
Gundam get colored too?
Yeah, so Gundam was colored by the creator, right? Like the Gundam creator came back and was like, "Hey, so I worked on the movie. I'm going to come back and I'm going to recolor this whole thing because I think it actually works well." But I think that wasn't like an Americanization of it. That was like the creator coming out and being like, "I'm doing this because it looks that good." And as someone who went and is reading through the original Gundam Mobile Suit series that was published in like these beautiful hardcovers, it is so fantastic. And the whole series isn't colored. It's just like the first collection is, and then every so often in the collections later you get like 4 or 5 or 6 pages that are colored, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous watercolor. Yeah. Anyways, complete tangent.
No, it's fine.
I think like this is a beautiful looking book from what you show me. I own the first 4 omnibuses. I've never actually sat down to read them, so maybe I should do this
like
too.
Physical?
Yeah, I have them in physical, and they are fat little monsters.
Yeah. For those people who want to try something new, who maybe are a little bit hesitant about getting into manga, again, the most common reason we hear a lot is people think of manga as only being shonen. That's not a knock against shonen. It's just simply, this is one side of manga. There are many others. This book, it has a little bit of humor. It's also very serious. It's got violence. It's got sexy stuff. Whatever you're looking for, it's here. Yesterday, I kind of came to the epiphany that this book is basically The Witcher before The Witcher, because you've got this guy who's serious, doesn't talk much. He just makes grunting noises or is just largely silent, and then just brutally murders 16 people and then goes, And he's saddled with having to look after his 2 or 3-year-old son, which, if you think about it, that's basically The Witcher if you swap out the son for Jaskier, because he's also like a small child who can't take care of himself. So
Great.
For those who like that dynamic, this is basically that. Another one that I would briefly say kind of I had to put off for a long time would be My Heroes Have Always Been Junkies by Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillips, and I think it was Jacob Phillips on colors for this book. And this isn't a knock against the creators. This isn't a knock against the Criminal franchise. One, I'm just not that big into Criminal. I think that was part of it. The other part is just the fact that it's like, and I understand it, all right, I get why it was priced this way. Like, I'm not saying, geez, it would be nice to have been $4, but like, I think it was like $18 for like a 85-page OGN. That's just
hardcover too.
That too. That's just hard for some people to swing, and it was hard for me to swing. And so I waited until it was on Hoopla. I still definitely recommend this as a book. Those are just the reasons it got put off. That's all. If you haven't read it and you're on the fence for the exact very same reason, It's on Hoopla. Go check it out. I think I talked about it maybe a month or two ago on this podcast anyway. So,
yeah, well, for me, I mean, I relate a lot to what you guys are talking about. Like, Kate, we talked about the Wicked and Divine thing. I think that should be like we should go back and reread that as like a group or something, because that book is serious, and I like almost need 2 or 3 or 4 people to talk to about it, because what the fuck is going on sometimes. Right? There's so much that happens in that series, but for me, I've had a handful of books that have been just like sitting in my backlog for forever. I mean, I don't necessarily need to go through them all, but I had a handful that kind of stuck out. Like, I bought a copy of that book Mooncakes that came out last year. This is by Suzanne Walker and Wendy Zhu, and I've been sitting on it for a while. And if you just search Mooncakes on Twitter, it does not come up. On Google, it does not come up. I mean, if you search it on Twitter, I'm sure it'll come up. But it was a book that, like, I was like, oh, this is beautiful. I really need to grab this. I've heard so many positive things about it. And then I bought it, and it just sat on my shelf for like months, up until like I think a month ago or so, maybe less than that. I just was like, I need to fucking actually read this book. And I was a little intimidated by it because it was such a big book. And I know that, like, you can spend a day sitting down to read comics, and it's like, oh, I'll read like 12 single issues, no big deal, and that's probably more pages than a graphic novel. But when you've got a graphic novel in front of you, it's this weird, like, oh, I don't just want to eat this one thing. I want to have a variety of things to eat. I want this, a plate of different, whatever. So sitting down and reading Mooncakes, I was a little intimidated by it because it was kind of thicker. But really, that was a mistake, because this book reads so fast, and that's not for a lack of dialogue. That's not for a lack of interesting art or anything. It just is a really, really, really solid OGN. It's broken up into different chapters. It's broken up like a collection would be, but it is one big OGN, and from beginning to end, you are pulled right in. Every single character is interesting. We've got grandmas that are kicking ass. We've got long lost friends that kind of become something more ? There's magic, there's technology, there's like evil witches and good witches, and bad choices made by people, and ghosts, and so many different like feel good moments and trying moments, and moments where the characters are in like these dire circumstances. It's such a beautiful book, and I don't know why I resisted reading it for so long, other than just the size of it. But really, I think I got through it really quick, and it would almost be worthwhile to sit down and read again, because of just how great the art was and how like well paced it is. Like, I haven't read an OGN in so long that was so well structured. They clearly had a beginning and end when they were planning it, and to see it broken up into chapters, it's like, this is what I want every single miniseries to be that I read, and yet I got it in this wonderful little package of an OGN. So I don't know why I resisted so much. I should not be so scared of thick books. I guess that's the only advice I can give you.
In a similar vein, so we should let that sink in. But in a similar vein, like, it took me forever to get to Mr. Miracle and Gideon Falls, even after they were on Hoopla. I mean, time and money were the reasons that I was waiting for them anyway. Otherwise, I totally would have gotten there. But then, like you were saying, like, when you check them out, it's like you're checking out the big bulk thing, and as Nick alluded to with the, like, you have the time limit, and you're like, oh, am I sure that I have enough time to read this, to use my credit on this and all this stuff? And but then once I did, man, Mr. Miracle and Gideon Falls both are fantastic. They lived up to all of the hype that I had been hearing forever, which I was very nervous, like Nick was saying, where something gets too much hype and you're like, I don't know, like, I don't want to be a naysayer, like, and it just like,
exactly.
I don't want to have an opinion on this book. Too many people are arguing about it, but no, both of these were fantastic. I have not finished Gideon Falls, but so far, very good.
Yeah, I mean, Mr. Miracle it's one of those books that you're like, how can this quite honestly live up to the hype?
Right?
Even as someone that was reading it like slightly month to month, I kept delaying my issues, so I would read them in like batches of 2 or 3. I was like, how can people be this positive about a book? And then you read every single issue, and it's like, holy shit, they did it. They fucking did it.
Yep.
I love that book. I have I own it digitally, but I bought the graphic novel because it's just that beautiful of a series. Another one that I was like super resistant to, and this one will actually probably hit to hit home with more people. I read Southern Bastards recently. Or I finally read volume 4, I should say. Like, Southern Bastards has been out for a long time. Like, I want to say 2012. Am I going crazy here on this?
No, I think you're right. I mean, it's
2014.
Yeah.
2014, even still, 2014, the series started coming out. And I know that they've had massive delays. Jason Latour and Jason Aaron have just been busy folks. I mean, we're talking about some of the biggest names in Marvel for a hot minute. I mean, Jason Aaron is still, like, he's a pillar over there, right? Mm-hmm. Also working on this series, Southern Bastards. And Nick, I know you were reading it on and off as it was coming out. I know you dropped it. I know that you definitely were someone that was kind of hyping it up, but I don't take people hyping up books as like a reason to not read them, but even still,
you're a normal human being. That's fine.
Sure. But like, I never got around to it because it seemed like such a heavy book. It seemed like a book that had just a lot of, I don't know, something that was going to just bring me down, and I never felt like I was in the right headspace to read it. But then I went on a trip at some point, and I was like, you know what? I'd snagged volumes 1 through 3, and then volume 4 came out, and I grabbed it, and I was like, okay, I'm going to sit down, I'm going to read all these. And so I blew through volumes 1 through 3 because, holy shit, this is the slowest story in the world. And God help you if you don't have all 3 volumes or all 4 volumes in front of you, because,
that's
my
the
gosh.
biggest issue. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I can't imagine reading it month to month. And I read East of West.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
So I mean, sitting down and reading all 3 volumes was great. And I got super hooked. And then for some reason, I put off volume 4 for like 4 months or 5 months because I think, like, on my trip I read volumes 1 through 3 and I was like, I don't want to start volume 4 because my plane's about to land. And then I just never went back and read it until maybe like 3 or 4 months ago, or 2 or 3 months ago. And holy shit, what a book. Like, I'm kicking myself for not have read it the moment I sat down and bought it.
That's honestly one of those books where I think the month-to-month user experience and the trade waiting experience are so massively different. Mm-hmm. And even then, like, this book has had, I don't know if you can even really call it delays. I think it's just gone on hiatus a bunch. Yeah. A ton. And it'll be so interesting once the series wraps, if and when, to have someone read all of it at that point, and have their thoughts on it versus like someone who's been around since the beginning buying it in floppies. Cause honestly, I think whoever's been waiting on this book, is going to have just a much better experience. Cause it's like, it's taken so long. And then like either the second or the third arc is, I think the first arc is like really, really interesting. And then it's like, hold on, because the second arc is all about the coach, right? Mm-hmm. It's like an origin arc. And then the third arc is just a bunch of standalone single issues that each focus on specific characters. I think there's like a small through line plot, but otherwise it's just sort of single focus character highlighted issues. And you're like, come on, like, I need to get back to like what happened at the end of the first arc.
Yeah.
And, oh my, it's
Kate, did you read this book at all?
No.
Okay. I wasn't sure if Nick had managed to, get his fingers in your brain to get you to read it as well. But I'm really like kicking myself for I've not read it, and now I'm like, I'm waiting for volume 5. We don't know if it's ever going to happen, but like, I am now one of those people chomping at the bit waiting for this book to come out. So I'm glad that I read it, and I really suggest anybody who wants a seriously good, like, cathartic story about revenge, I really think you'd enjoy it. It's so fucking good. But yeah, I don't know. Were there any other books that came to mind when you're thinking like, man, I really put this off for a long time and I don't know why, or you have a reason why other than, some of the reasons we've already spoken about? Kate, what about you? I don't know if there were any specific things that you had in mind outside of like Lumberjanes and Mr. Miracle.
So I also mentioned the webcomics. There's actually quite a few webcomics that I discovered once I started using Webtoons. In particular, I really like Trashbird and Poorly Drawn Lines. Mm-hmm. And then there's just a whole discovery feature on that app that lets you find just all sorts of stuff. And it's so quick to just dip your toes in because each issue, quote unquote, will take like 3 minutes to read, which is fantastic when you are busy and have no time, but people are late to meetings, So, But then there's like a lot of other slice of life, all ages books that I had the similar response to Lumberjanes too. And I eventually figured out that the people who were so vocal about not liking a lot of these series just don't like all ages books. And I'm just like, oh, well, you could just say that instead of saying the comic's bad. So like Giant Days, actually I don't know that one counts as all ages, but it is slice of life in the same vein. The like Gotham Academy fell into that boat for me, where people were saying it was bad, and I was like, are you crazy? Because this is really good.
Yeah.
And then the other things that, in terms of like, sometimes with comics, it can be hard when there's so much backlog or history to something. So I didn't read X-Men for the longest time because every time I tried, it was just like getting like dragged along the bottom of the ocean by the wave that crashed over you and then wouldn't let you go. And I was just like, I don't know any of these references or names or people. And so finding like a good jumping in place and then being really ready to sit down with Wikipedia on one screen and the comic on the other, I think helped. But there's other series like that where I'm just like, I don't have the mental energy to figure out what's happening.
Yeah, I gotcha. Yeah, I X-Men. Oh, I mean, I don't even know at this point. Like, I don't have the mental strength to try to explain to someone how to get into the X-Men. I just tell them, you just roll with the punches.
Yeah.
I promise it'll eventually make sense. Like, all they're referencing actually doesn't matter.
Exactly.
None of the references matter. It's all about the current story, and if they bring something in, they'll explain it to you. That's all I can really say. But yeah, I totally get that.
I think the other one that I've held off on sometimes is from pure saltiness, where they changed creative teams or they rebooted something in a way I didn't want to, and I was like, I'm not going to read it anymore. And then I eventually... Well, no one's looking now. Maybe I will check it out.
Oh, yeah. Oh, this is... Yes, Kate. Okay, good. I'm glad that you're admitting this, because I do this, too.
And then you go back and you're like, I guess it's not so bad.
But you'll never know.
Yes, I will never speak this to a single soul until I get
just
super drunk at a
us.
Party. But Yes. Well, we don't have to admit any of the series. All we're just going to say is that if we've ever complained about something, you never know. We might have actually gone back and read it. So keep that in mind, listeners. I don't know. I guess like a lot of my other thoughts that I had on this were around like some manga that people have been telling me to read, but I was really intimidated by the length of them. And I know that with a lot of these manga, there's no jumping on point. There's just, you got to read from number one and that's it. And so my big one is One Piece, and people have been telling me to read One Piece for probably 3 or 4 years now. And I'm just like, man, that's so fucking long. And here I am 230 some chapters in.
God, Mike.
I got to get to 900,
Wait,
baby.
is a chapter a volume, or is that...
No.
Okay.
No. So a chapter's like a single issue.
Okay.
But they're about anywhere between 20 and 24 pages each. So it's quite a bit of reading. So like I've looked at my comics read, my like spreadsheet that I keep, and it is mostly One Piece this year. And it's March, and I still have another 700 chapters to go. So yeah, so that's where all my reading has gone. But yeah, it's like One Piece is one of those. Haikyuu was another big one that was recommended to me by Renee and a couple other people that I know, and I put it off for a little bit to be like, sports manga sounds stupid. Who would even like watching some people playing volleyball? And then I read like 20 volumes of it. So yeah, I fell off the wagon. I haven't been keeping up. I'm very behind, but now that I've caught up on One Punch Man, I think I maybe should pick up Haikyuu, try to read a handful of chapters every week just to slowly get caught up. I'm not going to get caught up, but yeah, One Piece is my main piece right now that I gotta focus on.
Well, that's
sorry,
our
that
show.
Was yeah, sorry, that was really gross what I just said. I'm sorry. But yeah, One Piece is my big thing, and I'm finally reading it. And now that I'm catching up on other manga, it feels good that I can focus just on One Piece and knock out like 20 to 30 chapters every week, even though that doesn't even get me close to the proper ratio to catch up before issue or chapter 1000. I'm hoping on a dream that I'll get there. I don't know. Do you guys have any other final thoughts about this? I mean, we put off comics for weird reasons. I think that's what we've discovered here. But yeah, anything else you guys have to say about this? Any other books you want to mention quickly?
No, I mean, Descender is another beautiful one that I hit pause on because I just wanted to read it all in one big stretch. And then they're like, it's done, but only sort of, because now there's more. And I was like, but it's a different name.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, it's time. But I haven't actually started that. I just own all of it because I know I'm going to like it. I just haven't. I've only read the first volume.
For me, it would probably have to be like if we're talking about books like me being intimidated by like Watchmen or March or things like this, and worried that I'm gonna have to have the most insightful things to say about it after I'm done. I think the converse is also true. Like after we all attended, some people unwittingly, by my encouragement, attended the Valiant C2E2 panel. I was very, very nervous about the 2019 reboot of Bloodshot because Tim Seeley basically came out and he's like, "Yeah, this ain't your grandpa's Bloodshot," and then he did the like the Attitude Era, like the what is it, like the Triple H like crotch cross arms thing or whatever. I'm kidding. That didn't happen, and I'm not even sure that's Triple H. I'm sure our fans will correct me on that. Maybe I'm right. I don't know. Anyway, so the flip side for me are books that I'm really nervous about. Specifically, it's as much as you guys were just sort of getting at this book gets rebooted, or a creative team changes, or both happen, or you have a book that's clearly being redesigned for some outer goal. In this case, it would be the Bloodshot movie. And again, like I said, it gets rebooted. It's being written for a specific purpose. The creative team, a brand new creative team. Throw on top of that I don't like the creative team. And I get really nervous because not only, one, do I not want to see what I loved get ruined, but it's comics, all things are changed, right? So you can't get too caught up in that. But on the flip side, I'm also worried that I don't want to come out of it and like totally have to like trash the hell out of something.
Sure.
You get worried that you're going to totally hate something and that it's going to be awful, and you're going to come out of it and just have all these awful feelings that you're going to have to excise, and the only way to do that is to pull out your live journal page and just pour it out, and then people read it and they go, "Wow, what an angry fucker, calm down." And it's like, so basically the lesson for today, everyone, write this down, is hide your feelings, bury them deep, put them in a mind prison. And the converse does happen for me as well, where you just look at something and you're like, I don't want to read this, but there's also that faint glimmer, and it's faint. It's like 1.5% faint that this could be okay. Because we've all had those experiences in comics where maybe we've stuck on a book after the narrative changes and the team changes and everything like that, but you stick it out. Maybe you're just too lazy to deal with editing your pull. You stick it out, and it's okay.
You accidentally stick it out because you forget to manage your pull.
Right.
Exactly.
Not that I've done that before.
You guys you're basically describing my experience with most X-Men books, so I get it. I stick around despite how much it hurts and how much I don't like them sometimes, hoping that things will get fixed. And sometimes it pays off. Most of the time it doesn't. But anyways, I appreciate the insight today here, guys. I appreciate everyone kind of understanding that, sometimes comics, they're better than we thought, and that's okay. So let's wrap up here. Let's I'm gonna throw you some credits really quick. You can follow us on Twitter. You can follow Nick at Death Star Plans. You can follow me at Mike Rappin, and you can follow the show at IRCB Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. I try to post fairly often. Now that I'm stuck inside looking at my phone all the time, I post more often than not.
This show and our many subscriber-only episodes are powered by fans like you on Patreon. You can join us now. That's at patreon.com/IRCB podcast.
If you haven't already, please rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. If you love it, give it 5 stars.
You can also join us on our Discord. That's at ircbpodcast.com/Discord. And you can make sure to tell a friend or two about the show. That would be great.
Infinity Shred is the best band in the universe. They do all the music for our show. We love them to death. Go listen to their new album. It's fantastic. Xander is a wizard, a great high-fiver, a great GM, and just someone to that's fun to be around. He also edits the show. He's amazing. I want to say thank you to Nick and Kate for your time today and talking about comic books that we've put off for way too long. Thank you to the listeners, and thank you to everyone out there who came and hung out with us this past Saturday on our Discord. It was a blast. We were on for way longer than I thought, and that's amazing. We can't thank you enough for your time. And until next time, comics are good, and so are you.